My name is Harrison Mayuku. You are welcome to Story World. Once, in a quiet village nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, there lived a loyal dog named Maximum. Max was an elegant golden retriever with a coat that gleamed in the sunlight and eyes that held a depth of emotion rarely seen in animals. His master, an elderly man named Thomas, was his world. Thomas had rescued Max as a puppy from a life of hardship, and from that day forward, the two were inseparable. They shared countless adventures, long walks, and quiet evenings by the fireplace. Thomas was an easy, kind-hearted soul who lived alone in a quaint cottage at the edge of the village. His days were simple but filled with joy because of Maximum. The villagers often saw the pair wandering through the fields, Thomas with his walking stick and Max trotting happily beside him. Their bond was unbreakable, their love unconditional. But time, as it does, moved on, and Thomas grew frail. His health declined steadily, and despite the best efforts of the village doctor, it was clear that he didn't have much time left. Max sensed his master's weakening state, staying close to him, offering comfort and warmth. On a cold winter's night, with Max lying faithfully by his side, Thomas took his last breath. The village mourned the loss of Thomas, a man beloved by all. They gathered to pay their respects and buried him in the small cemetery overlooking the hills he so loved. Max, however, could not comprehend the loss. He had been there when Thomas passed, but his loyal heart refused to accept it. Every night, he would make his way to the graveyard, guided by an unshakable belief that his master would return. Max's nightly visits became a part of the village's life. Under the cover of darkness, he would sneak out of the cottage, cross the village square, and make his way up the hill to the cemetery. There, he would find Thomas's grave and lay beside it, his soft whimpers breaking the silence of the inn. Hello. If you are still here, please like and subscribe. His soft whimpers breaking the silence of the night. He would dig at the earth, sniffing and pouring, as if hoping to uncover a hidden passage that would lead him to Thomas. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The villagers watched with heavy hearts as Max's visits continued. Some tried to bring him back, to console him, but he always found his way back to the grave. Even when the weather turned harsh, with rain and snow beating down, Max remained undeterred. His golden fur became matted, and he grew thinner, but his spirit never wavered. One night, as Max lay by the grave, the moon high and bright, he heard a sound that made his ears perk up. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there, a whisper carried on the wind. Max lifted his head and listened intently. Max, the voice seemed to say. His heart raced. It was Thomas's voice. He was sure of it. He stood up, his tail wagging furiously, and barked into the night. The whisper came again, clearer this time. Max, I'm here. Max barked louder, running in circles around the grave. He dug furiously, his paws a blur. The voice guided him, reassuring him. Just a little more, Maximum. He dug until his paws were raw and the earth beneath him gave way to a small opening. Max stopped and peered into the darkness of the hole. He could see nothing, but the voice was louder now, closer. He barked again, his heart pounding with hope and excitement. He stuck his nose into the hole, sniffing deeply. The scent was familiar, Thomas. He barked once more, and suddenly, a warm, comforting presence enveloped him. Max closed his eyes, feeling the touch of his master's hand on his fur, hearing his voice as if he were standing right beside him. The villagers found Max the next morning, lying peacefully by the grave, his eyes closed, and a serene expression on his face. They carried him back to the cottage, where he remained for the rest of the day, resting and regaining his strength. That night, Max returned to the graveyard, and to the villagers' astonishment, he no longer cried. Instead, he sat by the grave, his head held high, his tail wagging gently, as if in silent conversation with his master. The village buzzed with stories of Max's loyalty and the miracle of the voice he had heard. Some believed it was a sign from the beyond, proof that Thomas's spirit was still watching over his faithful companion. Others thought it was the manifestation of Max's unwavering belief and love. But regardless of what they believed, they all agreed that the bond between Thomas and Max was extraordinary, transcending even death. Max continued his nightly visits, but they were no longer filled with sorrow. Instead, they became a time of reunion, a moment where the veil between the living and the dead seemed to thin, allowing Max to feel his master's presence. He would sit by the grave, looking up at the sky, listening to the wind, and wagging his tail as if receiving silent messages from Thomas. Years passed, and Max grew older. His fur turned grey, and his steps slowed, but his spirit remained strong. The villagers, inspired by his loyalty, took turns caring for him, ensuring he was well-fed and comfortable. They built a small shelter by Thomas's grave, where Max could rest during his nightly visits, protected from the elements. One warm summer evening, as the sun set behind the hills, casting a golden glow over the cemetery, Max lay by the grave, his body tired but his heart content. He closed his eyes, listening to the whispers of the wind. "Max, my faithful friend," the voice came, as it always did. Max's tail wagged weakly, and he let out a soft, contented sigh. The villagers found him the next morning, lying peacefully by Thomas's grave, his eyes closed, and a serene expression on his face. Max had passed away in the place he loved most, beside the master he had never stopped believing in. The village mourned once more, but this time, there was a sense of peace and fulfillment. They buried Max beside Thomas, marking the spot with a simple stone that read, "Here lies Max, the most loyal of friends, who never stopped believing." The grave became a place of pilgrimage for those who sought to understand the depth of love and loyalty. People from far and wide came to hear the story of Max and Thomas, finding inspiration in their bond. The legend of Max and his unwavering belief lived on, a testament to the power of love and loyalty. In the quiet village, under the watchful eyes of the hills and the whispering winds, Max and Thomas were reunited at last, their spirits forever entwined, reminding the world that some bonds are unbreakable, even by death. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.